Systems of record, systems of engagement, and systems of intelligence. What exactly are these various systems? Today we take a look back and a deeper dive into episode 66 to examine the way these particular systems build upon one another and why it's so crucial for tech leaders to understand them. I'm Jason Hoflick, and this is TSP Moments from the Thoughtful Software Podcast. Our episode today is brought to you by Bloomfilter. Did you know that over $2 trillion was wasted on failed software projects last year alone? And the dollar amount for this year might be even higher. Well, the folks at Bloomfilter think that it's time for that to change. Bloomfilter is a new app that brings unprecedented amounts of data about every single one of your projects straight to your fingertips, giving you insight never before seen in any one single app. Bloomfilter's revolutionary new project platform dramatically improves communication, predictability, and efficiency across the software development lifecycle. Bloomfilter provides software teams complete visibility into their projects, keeping them on track and in budget to drive consistent, valuable outcomes. Working hard just isn't enough anymore. You need to work smart as well, and Bloomfilter is how you do it. So head on over to bloomfilter.co, that's BLOOMFILTER.co, to sign up today and start changing the way you work. All right, now, in order to understand why tech leaders should understand and use these various systems, we have to break down each one and kind of explain and explore each one individually. So we'll start with systems of record. Well, what is a system of record? A system of record is a system that creates one or more sets of data in a business and owns that record and handles all records with regards to customer relationship management. Examples would be Salesforce, NetSuite, Workday. And the reason that these are so important to enterprises is that they allow everybody to interact and work with the same data set. Organizations are bigger than they have ever been before. They're more distributed than they have ever been at any given time, and those systems of record are important for driving productivity. However, the usefulness of the data in systems of record does have its limits. A piece written at digital.ai notes that data in systems of record is typically stored in a format that is optimized for use by an application, not necessarily for analytics, making it very hard to adopt for AI or machine learning techniques. And this also means that while systems of record do a decent job of providing pre-built reports on a single process, it's extremely difficult to explore any further with that data. Systems of record are extremely useful and absolutely necessary, but relatively limited. Systems of engagement are systems that people engage with every day in order to do their jobs. Things like sales analytics, revenue management, and accounting management that help prevent churn. A good example of systems of engagement would be Tableau. According to Dynamic Field, systems of engagement help facilitate and orchestrate the customer journey via more personalized, seamless interactions across the various touchpoints. These include social media channels, email marketing platforms, mobile apps, content management systems, and personalization vendors. The more people use the system, the more that people interact with the system, they'll rely on it more because it's a core part and a function of their job, so much so that they can't even get work done without it. Systems of record and systems of engagement over the years have created massive amounts of data that can now be taken and used to create systems of intelligence. Systems of intelligence sit on top of the data created from systems of record and systems of engagement that then use that data in the form of artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language processing and deep learning in order to power systems that truly understand the context in which people are working. This does what systems of record were really never capable of doing and opens a whole new door to possibilities unexplored before. Systems of intelligence may not just be able to predict outcomes, they may be able to prescribe courses of action. So how should companies approach systems of intelligence today? Well, we're in the first inning, so to speak, of systems of intelligence, and the key now is to keep collecting data and using systems of engagement. And over time, we'll see a natural progression from systems of intelligence helping you do your job to telling you how to do your job. Now, naturally, there may be some question about the risk of being fed data from so many different sources, but in reality, machine learning models are not built in real time, and they absorb huge amounts of data in order to be accurate and effective. Furthermore, there's no competitive company with customers today that's going to prevent any type of integration. It's certainly natural to wonder if there's any risk involved with systems of intelligence, given that we live in an era where it feels like every moat has been crossed or breached. In fact, William Voorhees from Data Science Central lists 6 of them, going back to the Silicon Valley era of the 1970s on up through the network effect era as far as 2020. Voorhees' work appears to be in agreement with Jerry Chen's seminal article on artificial intelligence. In the article, Mr. Chen said, quote, "I believe that systems of intelligence are the new moats. What makes a system of intelligence valuable is that it typically crosses multiple data sets, multiple systems of record. You can build intelligence on a single data source or a single system of record, but that position becomes harder to defend against the vendor that owns the data. Incumbents will be advantaged on their own data." Close quote. And this is where our conversation with Andrew and Fahad pick up, as they discuss how these different systems build upon one another and how technology leaders should approach systems of intelligence today.
I think systems of intelligence tend to be more of connecting disparate systems across whatever tool that you're using. So you don't have to necessarily create these foundational pieces. That's what systems of records are. And because of the API economy, it makes it a lot more feasible. Is that true? What's the limit here? Can we just continue to just keep building intelligence around various systems that we have? Or do we need to maybe potentially build different types of infrastructure?
I think both is true. I think what you said is absolutely accurate, if not quite precise, but it's accurate enough to not go into the precise details that would take us hours to get into all that. But yes, the API economy, data being open, more processes being digitized, having digital systems involved in them, all of that, absolutely true on that side. And giving access to that data via APIs and everything as those become compromised. And I absolutely agree that there's a lot of things that won't necessarily be digital, right? We had a meeting to discuss things. Well, that doesn't create data. However, we are actually at a really interesting precipice. And that interesting precipice is meetings now are being recorded via Zoom and everything else. And the technology to understand what is being said and record it and keep it is getting much more mature. And if COVID did anything, it gave companies like Zoom, companies like Microsoft, companies like Google, a lot of data. Because where it used to be 80% of meetings were in person, for an entire year, almost exclusively, meetings were done over the internet. And so people had transcripts. People were able to analyze those transcripts. People can go in and find out, hey, when this was said, what occurred from it, and be able to put all that data together. And so some of this data that didn't exist, this infrastructure, as you call it, that didn't exist before, that were gaps in the data story, if you will, and the story arc of how jobs are done, that's quickly being eroded. And as we shift to this new way of working and things become more digital, I think those infrastructure pieces will fit in and the systems will hit a Cambrian explosion of being able to access this data and understand the full picture. And so it's just going to make things better and better. And I don't think anyone's looking at that particular side effect yet of the amount of infrastructure that we've created that closed gaps in how people work and made them a lot more digital over the last year. And I don't think people are taking full advantage of it. I know Zoom is, I know Microsoft is, but startups, I don't think have quite jumped on that yet. But when they do, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, I'm also interested in just looking at if you're building a systems intelligence and you're being fed data from, let's say, Zoom, you're looking at Zoom data and you're making, intelligent decisions, you're manipulating and massaging this data. Isn't there some inherent risk relying on another system to feed you this data? What if Zoom goes down or you want to switch off of Zoom to Google or whatever, and their data looks different? Do you have to start re-architecting your systems intelligence? Like, how does that work and how can you mitigate this risk?
I don't think it's a risk at all. I think we live in such a digital world that, like, even if, well, okay, there's two things that you mentioned there. So to correct the record, machine learning models are not built in real time. If your machine model is built in real time, you don't have a very robust model. Most machine learning models, to be truly effective, absorb terabytes of data. They run trillions of calculations. It takes hours, if not days, to create a very robust model. Even on the highest compute farms, GPT-3, and they have a lot of resources given to them from Microsoft. They got like $1 billion from Microsoft. I think they said it took 7 days to build a GPT-3 model. Now, obviously, that's an extreme cutting edge example of a very robust model, but similar scales apply, because even though they have a lot of data and they're looking at the entire internet and everything else, it's crazy. Even if you cut that by 1/1000th, you still don't have $1 billion to spend on a compute farm like you do. So it's still going to take you roughly 7 days. And so when you think about that, even if Zoom goes down, you just happen to have a model that may lack a couple hours of data. But again, I don't think that's a game changer for people. So that kind of stuff isn't really a concern. The business risk is, well, what if Asana doesn't let you integrate with it, or Jira doesn't let you integrate with it? That's a bullshit concern. No company that has customers is going to stop them from letting things integrate. We are far past that point where people have gotten anti-competitive. In fact, the last company that tried to do this, Microsoft, got antitrusted and had to fire their CEO quite famously over this. Like, you can't do that. If you have an open API, customers are going to demand other systems integrate with it. We exist in an ecosystem world where digital solutions compete on their own merits in their own areas. And when they feel like they need to, the solution is using better use of their data, they either acquire it or they partner in a way that also makes it beneficial for them. In no way do people cut them off, because you won't have customers for very long, because someone's competitive advantage over you, and it's very silly to lose this way, is we let people integrate with us. Like, if that's how you're going to lose, like, that's a stupid way to lose a lot of money. And so I think we just live in a golden age of collaboration, a golden age of competition, and it's not really a concern from that perspective. The only concern I think people have is their data available such that you can build a system of intelligence. And if there is one, and there is, then you shouldn't worry about how they got the data, who they integrate with, everything, because it's just, in my mind, it's a non-starter, and it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, it's all really fascinating. When you think about all these systems, how should enterprises approach putting this all together? What do you think would be, just a good starting point? I'm sure they have all the types of record systems and engagement systems, and potentially they're thinking about these intelligent systems. Just, as a final thought, how should CIOs and CTOs and technology leaders be approaching all of this?
I think you need to do a data index. You need to understand what you have today, understand what you'll need, and start looking at problems that you want to solve. If you want to project revenue, then there's a set of data you need to do that. I'll tell you, if you don't have a revenue recognition schedule and a churn rate, you're not predicting revenue. You just can't, because we don't know when you're going to recognize the revenue from a contract. And then on the other side, if you don't know your churn, you don't know at what point people are going to churn out of that. And so you can't do a forecasting. So you have to look at the data you have, the systems that data lives in, how you're going to access it, where you're going to put it, so that you can answer your hard questions of your business, and then find out where your gaps are, and then go after it. But I think people recklessly just install systems because they feel like they need it. They feel like, hey, the more systems, the better. Personally, the least amount of software you can have, whether it's custom or not, is the best amount of software. And so you have to think about, what systems do I have? What systems do I need? What data, more importantly, do I have access to? And what kind of questions am I going to answer? What's the biggest question that if I answer today would make my business more competitive? And then work your way towards that, to either build the system, buy the system, or do some combination of both.
That's all the time we have for today. If you like this episode, be sure to leave us a positive review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.